AFRINIC's current CEO potential association with a terrorist sympathizer. Potential terrorism funding and support? Who is Amin Dayak and what's his connection to AFRINIC's current CEO? Well, let me tell you the story in this video. NRS is short for Number Resource Society, a global, nonprofit membership organization advocating for a global, unlimited, stable, and united internet, and internet that is safe and free for all people around the globe. NRS recognizes internet as one universal resource that relies on global free market and enterprise with excellent transparency and accountability. Now that we've established what NRS is, let me tell you Mr. Amin's story and why we feel obliged to share our serious concerns about this gentleman over the past year with the community. Amin Dayak is a Lebanese national and the CEO of Megamore Wireless Broadband Limited, an ISP company located in Kano in northern Nigeria. As one of the resource companies, we approached him as well as all other stakeholders of the internet to promote NRS ideology of transparency and accountability. But as they always say, looks can be deceptive. In the process of engaging with Mr. Dayak, we started to notice some questionable behavior, such as hate speech and apparent support for a terrorist organization. I know what's going on in your mind. Why didn't you guys just stop dealing with him immediately? Well, what we discovered about this man was bigger than us, and due to how serious it is, we advised the officer who was in touch with him to continue cooperating with him in order to gather more evidence about this man's potential criminal activity, and we did, which you'll see in the upcoming minutes of this video, supported by screenshots from his conversations with us, as well as his own social media posts. Mr. Dayak initiated a request for money from one of NRS's employees, as well as asking to support him in gaining a seat in AFRINIC's board of directors. As shown in this screenshot, Mr. Dayak commented, "I'm also interested to become a director in AFRINIC." This behavior immediately raised serious red flags for us. In the meantime, back then, we proceeded to investigate Amin thoroughly as part of our standard due diligence process for the sake of a safer internet. And what we have uncovered after our investigation is extremely shocking and alarming. During our investigations, we found that Mr. Dayak's social media posts were of huge concern. His posts included serious hate speech and indicated his potential fundraising for a prescribed terrorist organization in Lebanon, Hezbollah. This, of course, has raised our concern that Mr. Dayak's incessant demand for money and ambition to become AFRINIC director and control AFRINIC might have been motivated by his obvious support for Hezbollah, a terrorist organization that has committed many war crimes in the past. Amin Dayak didn't stop there supporting a terrorist organization, and we discovered that he had published many social media posts promoting hate speech. For example, he published this post saying, "Our people welcomed Israelis with boiling oil and kitchen knives." This level of hatred and violent language targeted towards Jewish people was highly distressing and alarming to us. We can't deal with a man who promotes these kinds of criminal activities toward a group of people. But a potential criminal isn't an easy person to deal with, and when Mr. Dayak realized that we wouldn't meet his demands for money and support him in the AFRINIC election, he got angry and twisted the story. What this man didn't realize is that the internet has a long-lasting evidence of his potential criminal activities in this case, and in the spirit of openness, we will show you a number of Mr. Dayak's public social media posts so that you can be the judge. Please note that these posts are distressing and are released only for transparency purposes. Mr. Dayak's tweets included the strongest possible terms of hate speech and terrorism support. The basics of the Lebanese resistance, from standing by the Palestinian Revolution to most of the martyrs of the leftist parties to Amal and Hezbollah, is greater than your barking. Hashtag Shirbel Nahas, hashtag Lebanon is rising. Hashtag Sherbal Nahas. Our people welcomed Israelis with boiling oil and kitchen knives in the south of Lebanon. Our people that you don't like how they look and how they dress are the ones who brought back dignity to Lebanon in the Battle of Kelda and February 6th Rising, to the point that the Israeli army shouted in the speakers, "We are leaving tomorrow, please don't shoot anymore." Hashtag Lebanon Rising. Another tweet by Mr. Dayak that includes extreme hate speech, as Amin says here that Israelis were greeted with boiling oil and kitchen knives by Hezbollah fighters. Hashtag Syria is supposed to be a land of fight and war with the enemy. The army is supposed to be ready, and allies' armies be ready as well. Why do we still see the Zionist Israeli airplanes flying every now and then? While the whole world was terrified by what's happening in Ukraine, Mr. Dayak retweeted this picture that was deleted by the original author later after a storm of criticism from Ukrainians and people around the world. Mr. Dayak's comments and actions are distressing and alarming to the point that we have reported him to the relevant anti-terrorism departments in the United States. His public comments are of great concern to us as an organization whose goal is to do the right thing by working with organizations and people of good and growth mindset. We felt that it was important to report him to the relevant departments in the United States of America. This is not a matter that we take lightly or underestimate, and in the interest of everyone involved and the safety of his future victims, we are shedding light on his actions. And we ceased all communications with him after discovering those actions and mindset. However, we still didn't know what Amin's connection to AFRINIC was. After Mr. Dayak discovered that we wouldn't accommodate his request for money and AFRINIC directorship, because we don't deal with those kind of people, he reached out to the current management of AFRINIC, specifically the current CEO of AFRINIC, Eddy Kayihura, the man who is famous for his corruption and manipulation, who is leading AFRINIC to dust instead of a bright and growing future. We are tremendously concerned that the nomination committee, controlled by the current AFRINIC board, selected Amin Dayak to be a candidate to be in the AFRINIC board of directors. How can that happen? Selecting a man who openly supports a terrorist organization and potentially funds them as a candidate while disqualifying all other good people on the continent? A simple exercise in due diligence by AFRINIC officials would have identified the serious issue and should have disqualified him. However, it seems that Mr. Amin Dayak has close links with the AFRINIC current leadership, and they need to be held accountable for this. AFRINIC must immediately condemn this hate speech and support for terrorist organizations, and should never have any connections with men like Amin Dayak. Terrorist sympathizer, Mr. Amin Dayak, pictured with AFRINIC CEO Eddy Kayihura in Mauritius, June 2022. We are confident that this explanation of the nature and extent of our engagement with Mr. Amin clears the picture. We have thought long and hard about whether to make this information public and concluded that keeping the internet and our community safe is our priority. We will never tolerate any potential criminal or harmful activities towards any human in the world.